Welcome to Barcoding Basics for Food Entrepreneurs. We're so glad that everyone could be here today. This webinar is for anyone that is looking to scale their food brand. And the first thing that you will need in order to sell to retail chains is you're going to have a barcode. Most retailers would require that you have a barcode. And so I have called on a good friend from GS1, and she is going to be here to share with us exactly what we need to make sure that we are compliant. So I want to welcome our friend Kaitlin Friedmann from GS1. Kaitlin, we're so glad that you could be here and spend this time with us. Welcome.
Thank you, Aubrey. Thank you all for having me so much. Thanks for the introduction. I'm Kaitlin Friedmann. I'm the marketing director for small businesses for GS1 US. I've been with the organization about 11 years and have learned so much about the needs of small businesses, what happens when you're first starting up, all the questions that come up when you think of barcoding. Not everybody thinks like, oh, I just can't wait to get my barcode. And it's something that needs to be unpacked and demystified. So hopefully I can answer some of the questions that you already have and kind of bring to light some things that maybe you just didn't even know existed. We all see barcodes every day, but we don't know too much about how it all works. So hopefully these basic tips will start you on the right path. So because GS1 US is a not-for-profit organization, we're required to show these two slides just to let you know that we fully comply with all antitrust laws, just a formality. And this is a disclosure just to let you know that this information is intended to be purely educational and you're free to make your own business decisions. So I'm excited to take you behind the barcode to become more familiar with it. We'll go through why do you even need one in the first place? Some of these acronyms that we throw around, the GTIN, the UPC. GTIN stands for Global Trade Item Number. UPC stands for Universal Product Code. Some people think they're the same thing. They're slightly different. I'll explain the difference there. Um, like I said, we see these black lines in spaces every day, but we don't really know how people set them up. So we can talk about estimating the right number of product barcodes. What is a company prefix? What will you get when you license a company prefix from GS1 US? Maintaining product data in general. So getting a barcode is just one part of the puzzle. You have to attach some data to go along with it so everybody knows what is this product? Does it have its own unique identity in the supply chain? We'll get into some packaging hierarchies, like cases and pallets, and what does that mean and how do you label those? Oh, my slides are driving themselves. Sorry about that. Let me go back. And what's next for the barcode? So we've got a pretty interesting shift happening in the next couple of years where QR codes will be more and more introduced on product packages. So we're really excited about that as well. Okay, let me get into who GS1 US is. I represent GS1 US, but there's actually 116 GS1 organizations around the world. There's GS1 China, GS1 UK, GS1 Brazil. We're all not for profit and we're all neutral. So that means that we work with a variety of brands and retailers and distributors and hospital systems, you name it. Sometimes even competitors come to the table at a GS1 US meeting. It's kind of cool to decide on a common path forward. And it's all in the name of serving the consumer better, serving the patient better, keeping people safe. Sorry about that. My slides are getting ahead of me. Um, we're inclusive and we're collaborative. We develop guidelines for different kinds of standards, such as, RFID, things like that. It's developed by our members and for our members. And actually, the COVID-19 supply chain crisis was a really good example of why a major global facilitator like GS1 US was needed to kind of sort through these major problems that everybody needed to kind of band together and figure out. Okay. GS1 US members actually include anyone who wants to participate in the supply chain, though. Anybody who gets a barcode from us becomes a member. So this can be a large multinational company, medium brands, and small businesses like yourself. So we love to collect stories of small business success. That's kind of my favorite part of my job is to shoot videos and just kind of be a storyteller because it helps others starting up learn from those who have gone before them. So you can check out some of those videos on our YouTube page. That's the QR code that'll lead you right there. Okay, so I thought we'd start off with a few quotes from some of my favorite recent stories, and they happen to be in the food and beverage industry. Ann Classman is somebody I met. She's the founder of Undressed Salad Bars. So think about like a granola bar, but only with more salad ingredients, fruits and vegetables. And she told us about how she values having her barcode number, that GTIN, kind of tie everything together. So she says, I'm able to organize all my products and the data associated with it by their GTIN. That number is the key to everything, especially when I'm working with packaging designers or other partners. You only have to assign that GTIN once, create the barcode, and then it's good for whoever you're working with. So I really like what Anne's saying there, and she's on the path to success already. Um, all right. And then we've got an example from Felicia Vieira. She's from the founder of Crafted Brand Company out in San Diego. And I love what she said about using the GS1 company prefix to identify her products and create barcodes. And it's really set herself up for success with retailers. So she says so many aspects of our growth rely on the GS1 company prefix. It's important to know what's coming next after you get your barcode and anticipate what a retailer will ask of you. So we will get into all of that here in this section. So if everybody's with me, I'm going to keep going. Okay, just wanted to level set about what I mean when I say the words GS1 standards. And so at GS1 US, we call our numbers and our data languages standards, but I often get asked what that means. There are a lot of different ways to describe and label and identify a product. And so, for example, you might have created your own internal SKU systems. The acronym SKU gets thrown around a lot in retail. And you might, if you're working with Amazon, you might have assigned an ASIN to your product, which is their proprietary identification number. So unlike these SKU systems and internal and proprietary labeling systems, GS1 standards create this global common language. So one that's readable across all global systems. So theoretically, your UPC that you get here in America could be read anywhere around the world. It's kind of one of those few global standards that we have. And this, this electric outlet, I think, is such a great analogy for what it could look like if we didn't have this global language. So this is what happens when different systems are not designed to be interoperable. So anyone who's traveled internationally knows that you need an adapter just to use a blow dryer, right, to dry your hair or use a razor. So imagine that each outlet represents the different language requirements of different retailers. And now imagine being a brand that supplies to these different retailers, and you need to think about point of sale, sending invoices, managing inventory. And what if you had to do that in all different language systems? So it would be hard enough to imagine a large business, a multinational company doing that easily, but small businesses like you guys, it's even harder with limited time and resources. So the good news is you've got this one common language of GSM standards that allows brands to leverage that knowledge base to sell to multiple partners. All right, a couple more basics. So this is what I was talking about. We love our acronyms at GSOUS, and this is one that I think just is a real basic one to nail. The GTIN, it's a global trade item number. The GTIN, it's a number that uniquely identifies the trade items. The universal product code is the UPC. That is actually the black lines and spaces. That is the symbol that is read by a barcode scanner. So some retailer guidelines, maybe you've already come across them, might use those interchangeably. They might say the number is the UPC, and say GTINs and UPCs are the same. So they're slightly different, and that's okay. Sometimes in my own marketing materials, we will refer to them as UPCs too. But for the sake of having this basic understanding of how it all works, because it is going to be important for you guys to know that that GTIN can be also encoded into different things like a QR code or an RFID tag, or it can be used alone in a product listing, like when you're selling on Amazon or another marketplace. So just to let you know, that GTIN number is actually something that you should all be aware of. And I just want to respond to something in the chat that says, are there slides? I just want to make sure everybody can see the slides that I'm presenting right now. We will be sending them out if that's what the question refers to.
Yes, we see them.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
Kaitlin, we actually have a raised hand.
Okay.
Charlotte. Charlotte, go ahead.
Hey, so my question as it pertains to small business, is there a certain point where the barcode is or is not necessary? Say, for instance, if you're selling a retail package locally,
Mhm.
is it valuable at that point, when you're still not at a point where your volume is just, really sucking out your, what little time you do have, and you can
Yeah.
still manage it from a manual standpoint with your own internal
Yeah.
tracking. Yeah. So let me know where's that line?
Yeah. I would love for small businesses to be as proactive as possible with getting their barcode. And there's a couple reasons for that. But Charlotte, you raise a really good point where if your supply chain is small and you might, if I'm a farm and I only have my own store, my supply chain is limited to just my own store, my own products. You don't need a barcode at that point. But say Whole Foods comes calling and they want to supply, they want to source more locally. They have a really robust locally sourcing program, they're going to require that you need a barcode. So it really is when you decide to expand across multiple channels, or if you're working with a major partner, like an Amazon. Actually, that's usually when people first come to us and say, "Oh, I wanted to sell in this channel," and they're saying, "I need a barcode." And there are some people who might have heard of us already or heard through the grapevine from different entrepreneur groups to be proactive and go get your barcode. A lot of people think that just to be prepared, they want to show that professionalism and show that they have credibility. And I'll get into some of that stuff later on in the next couple of slides. So I guess the short answer, the long story short, is that it is your choice depending on need and depending on what kinds of retailers you're working with.
Okay, thank you.
Great question. I'm sure a lot of others were thinking that too. And I've got a question in the chat too, and it says, is the 12 an indication of numeric length? So yes, I should have explained that as well too, and I have additional slides that we can get into when we're talking about packaging hierarchies. So GTIN 12 does refer to a 12-digit number. That is the number that is encoded into that UPC that goes beep at checkout. There are GTIN 8s, there's GTIN 14s, there's GTIN 13s. There's a lot of information on our website if you would like to know those specifics. Later on, I'll let you know the significance of the GTIN 14 because that is something I think as a beginner, you are going to need to know about that. So thanks for that question as well. Okay. So when we think about all of this from the retailer's perspective, their systems are designed to use GS1 standards for product identification so they can keep their inventories organized. So they often will refer to a database that we maintain called the GS1 registry or the GS1 database. I've got a screenshot here. And you can go to that link. Anybody can go and look up any GTIN for free or any company name for free and see, who's it linked to, right? And so the retailers need that to confirm, brand authenticity. And what happens if I'm a teddy bear company and I've got this GTIN, but it's registered in the GS1 registry to a lamp company? So you might run the risk of being delisted or rejected from those retailers or marketplaces when those GTINs don't align with the right company as the owner in the database. And the reason why some of this might happen is that there's some third-party websites out there that sell UPCs outside of the GS1 system. And so they may end up being GTINs that have already been used or are registered to another company. We're not really sure how it happens. This could be against some retailer policies though. So I just want to bring your attention to that. Okay. So there's some benefits by channel to using a GS1 issued barcode. So the concept of unique identification is valued in the multiple channels that you might sell in. So this chart shows different benefits for different channels. If you sell in brick and mortar stores, you need the product to go beep at the point of sale, right? That is a number one concern. Your relationship with that retailer would be in jeopardy if that doesn't happen. You need your product to be accepted in the retailer fulfillment systems too. So many retailers want that source to store visibility about where products are, and having this unique identifier that's acceptable in multiple systems, this GS1 barcode will help them with shipping and receiving and a lot of key processes in the retail supply chain. So you can also track your sales data with one interoperable number. I know some small businesses that I've talked to that subscribe to like a Nielsen or another third-party solution provider that gives them actual sales data back from all the retailers that they're working with. So that can help you see what flavors are selling better in in New Jersey versus what's in Florida. It just is, it helps you with your growth strategy. Okay. And yes, Teresa, thank you. I see your question in the chat. The question is when the GTIN barcode is purchased, and why do you have to pay an annual fee for that? So I can get into that in some future slides too. If you're selling online, having a barcode means that your product listing will be properly indexed for search algorithms. So when you're on an e-commerce platform, you want that product to be surfaced when the consumer searches for that in whatever product category that you're targeting. So having that one identifier is key to that process. Having a valid barcode also helps you protect yourself against counterfeiters that may claim your product as their own. And so if anybody has any experience with Amazon in particular too, this is called hijacking. And a lot of the sellers often will show their GS1 prefix certificate or their GS1 GTIN certificate as one of the proof points to say, I am the rightful owner of this listing, I'm the rightful owner of this product. So it also supports an overall kind of healthy product listing, and selling online means that the consumer really does have that limited interaction with your product. So the listing is everything. You want to make sure that you have all things in place to be able to match that consumer need and make sure that that right product gets to the right consumer at the right time. Okay, so now if you sell in both stores and online, there's additional benefits. This is what we call omni-channel selling, if you want a little retail lingo. Both types of sellers have a sense of credibility among retailers and marketplaces, and when they barcode their products. So like we talked about with the question just now, how do you know when the timing is right? So many small business owners that I talk to say it makes them feel like they made it, that their dream is a reality. It's kind of a moment of, okay, I'm open for business and I am projecting this professionalism so that I can attract new retailer partners and be ready for whatever their requirements are. Because on day one, that is something that they're going to ask for. And if you're an omni-channel business, you can also track products easier with one common identification number and be ready to partner with logistics companies that will track and trace your products. And when I say track and trace, I think it's really important to underscore that there are, you guys are in the food and beverage industry. You might be subject to FDA regulations that would require some level of traceability. So in the event of a recall, can you isolate those products by their UPC and know with precision what was affected by a foodborne illness outbreak or some kind of contamination? So it's something to think about, where having that level of identification can help you communicate with your other partners saying, okay, we think that something happened on the production line. We're going to need to pull all these UPCs from the shelves. So also UPC barcodes simply support good inventory management processes. So this one number is really the basic building block of what's going to happen to your whole supply chain. Let me just check the chat for any other questions. I see a question regarding Amazon. You'll notice I'm kind of using that as an example throughout. Amazon's a whole class in and of itself. GS1 does, the GS1 barcodes are a requirement of Amazon, but there are some exemptions to, kind of like the earlier question, if you are not really selling with a major retailer, you might not need a barcode yet. But also if you're creating like handmade jewelry, for example, that might qualify for a GTIN exemption on a platform like Amazon and some others too. So it's really important to go and understand their own guidelines and rules. Amazon has a really robust seller central community where users answer each other's questions too. So yes, Amazon has the ASIN number, and then often they will require the GTIN as well. But there are some cases of exemptions, so it depends on what kind of product you're selling. Okay. And I see a question from Teresa too. Do the ones that you're not using expire? So I can get into that when I'm explaining the company prefix in a couple slides too. Thank you for bringing that up. Okay, a lot of people when they first start out are like, well, how many do I really need? And the estimation process is really key. Actually, to what Teresa's saying is, if you buy something license something in bulk, like if you are planning on getting 100 barcodes with us, is that really going to accommodate everything that you'll need as your product line grows and as you are labeling sizes and colors and styles and packaging. So it really adds up. And I think this graphic really communicates just how much thought goes into estimating barcodes. It's on our website. It's a helpful illustration here. We also have a barcode estimator tool on our website, and I'm really excited that we're revamping that tool and it'll be relaunched in the spring to be a little bit more personalized to this is what would be recommended in a regulated food industry. This is what would be recommended in CPG. So I think around March or April, that's going to be ready to go. But there is a barcode estimator tool currently on there now too. So GTINs need to be assigned to the products at the lowest variation level. So really every variant needs to have its own unique number. A diet soda is different from regular soda. Whatever the perception is on the consumer level, from a regulatory standpoint, and from a supply chain standpoint, the packaging matters to your decision about does this need its own GTIN. So for instance, if I make a t-shirt comes in 3 sizes, that's 3 barcodes, I'm done. But what about if it comes in pink, blue, and purple? So now I've got 9. And what if it comes in short sleeve, 3/4 sleeve, and long sleeve? Now I'm up to 27. And then what if it comes in 3 different packaging? Now I'm up to 81. And so a lot of times, a small business just starting out will say, okay, I need 81. We have a pack of 100 barcodes in a company prefix. So knowing that you might be growing and changing and tinkering with ingredients and recipes, you might want those extra barcodes to be able to understand, okay, well, what if I'm going to launch a new line in the next 3 to 6 months? So it's good to kind of understand a buffer as well. So we do have some flexible pricing options, especially for small businesses. So in 2020, it was very exciting for us. We introduced the single GTIN for $30 and no renewal fee. And we hadn't previously offered that. It was just this bundled pricing with company prefix, which I will get into in the next slide. And small businesses really have responded well to this flexible option. It can be hard to predict how your business is going to grow. And if this is just, a side hustle or something you're doing just because you always wanted to explore selling the tea that your family's been making for years and years, let's get that out on Shopify. Let's get that on Amazon. Let's get that out into a specialty market and see how it does. So I think that the single GTIN is really good for those testing the water, might only have about 3 to 5 products, and they probably don't have a lot of plans for growth. It'll just be this passive income, and we'll see how it does. On the flip side, I would say, let me go to my next slide. And I see the questions coming in. We do have a lot of time allotted for answering questions at the end too. So I'm going to keep going through this, and maybe the slides will help kind of answer some of the questions that you already have. I know the company prefix is something that people ask a lot of questions about. So we say bundled barcodes and so much more. So let's say you have more than 5 product variations, and it's quite common, like that t-shirt example, right? Especially in food and beverage. I mean, you have so many flavors and packaging styles. Most small businesses will opt for the company prefix option, which allows you to create your own GTINs and assign barcodes yourself as you need them. So it's based on capacity. If you have 10 products, the starting point will be $250 to start with an annual renewal fee. And then we have options for 100 GTINs, 1,000 GTINs, 10,000, and 100,000. 100,000 is usually for like a Coca-Cola or Pepsi, level of multinational company. So GS1 company prefixes are unique to each member of GS1 US. And we talked about the value of unique identification and knowing that your product is linked to your company. It has this identity throughout the world. So knowing your trading partners will know you by your prefix is really, really valuable. And that's really where the renewal fee comes in. It's a license agreement. We want you to maintain that license like you would your driver's license. This is your number. Right now, it's licensed to you. We want to make sure that everything stays unique and there's order in the supply chain. And I would say it wasn't always like that. If before the rise of e-commerce, there were numbers assigned to products, and then people were reusing them. But now we find that a product has a much longer lifespan on e-commerce and on these marketplaces. That unique identification is really, really crucial to making sure that the right customer gets the right thing. There really shouldn't be any confusion as to what the item is in different retailer systems. So the GTIN is that the company prefix is that building block for all your identification needs. You can create barcodes with it. You can also identify locations. You can create global location numbers with it. And we're showing an SSCC, which is a serialized shipping container code. And I'll get into where you would use that during our packaging hierarchy slides. But this is just showing the full breadth of what a company prefix will get you. So it's the ability to barcode products, but then, like as our friend Felicia Vieira said in the beginning, it sets you up for growth. The retailer is going to ask you potentially to label your locations for a warehouse or a farm or a lot. You have to be prepared for those kinds of things with especially some FDA regulations coming down the pike. So the company prefix allows you to be prepared to kind of be agile with all of those asks from your retail partners. We'll check our. Oh, okay. It says, is it possible to have you move the mic closer? Thank you so much. I've got, there we go. Thank you, David. We want to be heard for sure. All right. And so how do you actually assign these GTINs and create the barcodes? We give you as our members power to control this through our GS1 US Data Hub platform. And this is free with your membership. Brands will receive it when you license a prefix or a single GTIN. In Data Hub, businesses can set up products and assign GTINs to each one. It's a management platform that really helps businesses ensure accuracy. So you won't need to worry about mistakes in the number sequence or duplications. Data Hub will kind of take care of that actual production of the number for you. Once products are set up and assigned, a GTIN user can create barcodes, and it'll publish in either a PNG or EPS file format. And you can share that electronically. So if you have a solution partner that's helping you with your labeling or a packaging designer, it's easily kind of transported out to them. Or you can print it your own. I know some people use like Brother Systems or different labelers at home to be able to just print some stickers and put them on your products. So brands can also export data to share externally too. So this might be an ask of a solution provider that you work with or a data pool, somebody who's really helping you share your product data on a mass scale. This would be like if you hit a certain growth level, maybe not so much as you're starting out, but retailer partners actually do ask you to share data seamlessly sometimes. And so just so you know, Data Hub also does that. It's just one of its many tricks other than creating barcodes. Okay. And I promised to kind of walk you through some of these packaging hierarchy basics. There's a lot of information on our website about this. This is a high level view. We have a lot of guidelines that get into the really nitty gritty details. These are the ones I picked out that I think are great starter, the starter lingo for when you're getting ready to work with retailers. So let's start with the each. And so we should think about when you're in Data Hub, entering the each first and then an inner pack. Some of the relationships and some of the guidelines refer to it as think of it as the children and the parents. So it really is kind of a hierarchy when you think about it that way. So an each is just what it sounds like too. It's a singular thing that's purchased or at checkout or sold online. So our each shown here is a single jar of jam, and that is assigned a GTIN 12, which would get encoded into the UPC. The inner pack is a pack of multiples of the same item representing one SKU or GTIN. So you have to specify that they're purchasable like this or not in Data Hub to be able to label it. Our inner pack here shows 4 jars of jam for shipping and receiving only. Okay. Next is a case. I think that we've seen cases, when you're shopping at one of the big box retailers like Costco or Sam's Club or BJ's. It's a standard shipping unit that contains eaches, packaged together individually or grouped as an inner pack, and all the items in the case must have the same GTIN. So this picture shows a case of 8 jars of strawberry jam. And this is where in Data Hub you would use a GTIN 14 to be able to identify it. That number is just reserved for things that don't pass through the point of sale. So think of GTIN 12, it goes through the point of sale. GTIN 14 is for your other levels of packaging. A mixed case contains more than one type of each. So mixed case makes sense, more than one type of each. So it would be 4 jars of blueberry jam and 4 jars of strawberry jam. And then we're also showing a pallet. So a pallet's a shipping unit that contains cases, inner packs, or eaches. And this is where you might use that SSEC, which is another identification number that can be created from your company prefix to label the pallet, not a GTIN. And it really depends on what your retailer is asking you to do, how you're going to ship it to them. A lot of these identification keys, they can all be created with the company prefix. And there are more levels. Like I said, we have some education and training courses. We have a packaging level module in our GS1 US University on our website. And like I said, we have a whole data hub help center on our website, which answers a lot of great questions kind of as you go along. And I should note that when you're in our data hub tool, it does have some nice information bubbles that pop up and kind of help you understand what the terminology is, because we recognize not everybody went to college for supply chain management, and some of these things might be pretty foreign or not self-explanatory. Okay. All right. Let me tell you about some other types of barcodes. We covered the UPC pretty well. You might come across the term EAN, and this is just a barcode that is predominantly used in Europe. The UPC should also be scanned in Europe too. They're kind of used interchangeably. The EAN has a different digit GTIN encoded into it. The GS1 data bar is something you probably see typically on individually marked pieces of fruit. So those are your point of sale barcodes. They're going to go beep at the checkout. Then we have those logistics barcodes that include the ITF14. So that is something you see printed on corrugate boxes. And then we have the GS1 128, which is that longer barcode. You might come across that in the food and beverage industry. It does help brands communicate things like expiration dates can be encoded in their lot codes. It helps support case level food traceability and some of the freshness, the first in, first out inventory management practices of different grocery stores. So what I also wanted to get into as well is the 2D barcodes. So the QR code, I feel like we are all so familiar with QR codes now, especially after the pandemic. I pay for my parking with QR codes most of the time when you're out downtown. We saw them on menus. There's so many uses for QR codes now, and consumers are really comfortable with scanning QR codes with their phones. It's the most recognizable of the 2D barcodes. There's another one called Data Matrix that can be used in food and healthcare. But the 2D barcode's kind of on track to create this product data revolution in the retail space. So I thought I'd take an opportunity to cover some of that with you guys, just so you know this is coming and it might be something really valuable for you to stand out in the marketplace. Okay, I just want to cover some quick questions in the chat before we move on to this section. Can we use an MPN, manufactured product number? That I'm unsure. That would have to be something you consult in the retailer guidelines. I don't think that would be acceptable to encode into a barcode, for instance. It could be something that you can list a product with online, but again, I'd have to point you in the direction of the retailer barcodes. And then I see, David, you said EAN, is that for European? Yes, the EAN is the European article number is what it stands for, and it's the predominant version of the UPC in Europe. And yes, we can send some information about how to generate QR codes. We have a number of solution partners in our solution partner program that are helping people get QR codes on their packaging. So GS1 US is spearheading an initiative where major retailers are aiming to have checkout systems ready to read the 2D barcode by 2027. So this means a gradual transition from the linear UPC barcode. It's going to start to be phased out towards this data-rich 2D barcode. And it can carry great information like more expiration dates, batch lot numbers, things that kind of can help keep consumers safe, where you might know about a recall right at the point of sale instead of getting home, maybe eating some of that lettuce, and then randomly hearing about a recall on the news, and now you may or may not have eaten it. You might not have prevented it from hitting your own refrigerator. Like I said, consumers are more and more comfortable with scanning QR codes too, and they really want some more transparency. They want to know where this product came from. Is it certified sustainable, or was it created under fair labor laws? Is it really gluten-free? Is it really organic? And so for CPG, I think this is a huge opportunity for storytelling. So use your packaging as a further differentiator. And it's also an opportunity to speak directly to your consumer who scans that barcode. So you can say, hey, we saw you brought this hot sauce from us. Here's some recipes. Or maybe you want to upsell or push coupons to them for the next time they're purchasing it. And so with the right backend technology too, you can also get data and insights about what they're scanning or who's scanning and where they're scanning. We have a case study on our website with a small brewery here in New Jersey called Ship Bottom Brewery. And they ran a 2D pilot just to understand how far is their reach. They wanted to just run a contest in the summer. And what they really wanted to get out of it was geographic locations of their buyers. So this type of QR code is powered by a GS1 standard. It's not a QR code that you might be using for marketing purposes. It's slightly different. It's called Digital Link, and it provides the structure that can kind of marry the B2B information that's required at checkout with the consumer-facing information that people are scanning with their smartphones. So it does require a little bit of a different kind of data structure, but I can send out some resources after this too, and a lot of times it's just like it has to do with the way the URL is composed that goes into that QR code. And I think it's something that small businesses can easily pick up and run with when the time comes. So it's almost like a heads up. This is coming in 2 years or so. We think there will be a time when UPCs and 2D barcodes are going to coexist. The UPC isn't just like going to go away overnight. So keep that in mind as you think about your packaging and things like that. It's not like a huge rush to be prepared for that, but just something that you should start to think about because some of the bigger brands are already thinking about it, and some of the retailers are already enabling their scanners to scan 2D barcodes. This is a video we have on our website. I thought it would be really helpful in the food and beverage space for you guys to kind of see what the SVP of PepsiCo is thinking about all this. I love the story he actually tells. This is what clicked for me, thinking, oh, this is more useful than I thought it was. For instance, a new allergen was added to the US allergen list, sesame. So think about the lag time between when that's identified as something potentially unsafe and when it's available for the public to know about it on the package. So they estimate that could take 18 to 24 months before the consumer packaging catches up with that information. So that's really critical lost time. If the consumers are scanning these specialized QR codes, they can have real-time information that'll keep them safer. So I think, again, just something to think about as you plan your growth strategy, that there could be a lot of information that you can push out to your consumers. Okay, and this is my final slide. I just wanted to leave you with some final thoughts, and then we can get to those questions. When you are choosing GS1 US, you're taking that first step toward building your supply chain, right? So you're keeping up with consumer demands. You're streamlining trading partner communication, right? Because it's that one identifier to rule them all that will be interoperable. You can offer some real-time inventory data and manage across channels. And you can maximize consumer and patients that would be applicable for healthcare, consumer safety, to be able to track and trace products better. So it all really just starts with setting up that barcode the right way from the beginning. And this is how to reach me. I really encourage everybody, please connect with me on LinkedIn. If you want to email me some questions, please feel free to do so. And I think if that's okay with you, Aubrey, I'm going to get into a lot of these questions in the chat. I'm so glad that we have such an active group here.
I know that's a great idea. Let's start first with Evan. Evan, he posted that he creates and sell 2 unique flavors of products each month, in addition to his standard flavor selection. Based on this, it looks like he would need to proactively purchase a lot of barcodes to prepare for the future launches. Would you agree with that statement?
You would, yes. And this can be a hard choice for small businesses. So I get where you're coming from, where say I have like a seasonal product and I'm only going to create a flavor for the holidays. I do have to use a G10 out of my capacity. Say I have 100 capacity prefix. And I understand it could be a hard choice for like, okay, I have to use a G10, even though that product's only going to be on the shelf for like 2 months. But it's different. You have to think about the perception. Is it a different product perceived from the consumer? Yes. Is it potentially a different flavor that the consumer is going to notice? Yeah. Are there formulation changes that would kind of be susceptible to regulatory changes? Maybe. So if a lot of this feels like a different product, again, we leave it in the hands of the brand to decide this. And there's actually a decision management tool on our website that's like, when do I need a new GTIN? And it'll guide you through. Sometimes you don't need a new GTIN. Like if your packaging changes by less than 20%, you do not need to use a GTIN for that. So you might be surprised that there is some leeway, but it sounds like in your case, yes, I would plan for that. And I know that it can be a hard challenge because it doesn't feel like it's going to be out there for that long. But the perception is that it's a different product.
Right, thank you. And so then Teresa asked, do we have to change the GTIN barcode that she launched for a product at a 5-ounce cup, but different packaging?
That's where I think this decision tool would come in handy. I couldn't
Yeah.
say for sure based on those details, but you might not have to based on some things that I've seen with the packaging changes not being significant, like over 20%. So I'm sorry, under 20%. So maybe we can put that in the chat when we're done here and or just make sure I include that in my slides for you guys too, because I think that would be a valuable tool. I know people really want to make sure they're getting as much value as possible out of that prefix, and you don't want to end up wasting a GTIN that you don't have to.
Awesome. So Megan, if you will, unmute yourself and go ahead and ask your question.
Okay. I was wondering, excuse me, do I hear me?
I
We
can
can
hear you,
hear
Megan.
you.
Okay, sorry, my AirPod dropped. I was wondering, since I sell fresh made to order charcuterie items, would it be necessary for me to establish barcoding if I'm not going to be selling them in a store?
Yeah, it's a choice, right? So most of the time people come to us saying, I'm starting to work with Walmart and I need a barcode. So when you start to work with a larger retailer, it'll be a part of their onboarding and their guidelines to get a GTIN or a barcode. Um, but if you're just selling, like a lot of people have Shopify stores, right? If it's just direct to consumer, you make it, you ship it. I don't think you need it yet. If you have aspirations to, grow your supply chain, work with more retailers, um, then I would consider it. A lot of people get it proactively, like I said earlier, just to kind of say to the consumer, I'm a legitimate company, I'm professional. It's something consumers might look for as a sign of this business. It feels like somebody I want to buy from. It's totally your choice. If it's not worth the investment at this point in your growth, then I would say you probably don't need it, especially for handmade things. I mean, we're talking about things that they're not mass produced, right? So your charcuterie boards might be different from everyone that you produce. I mean, I love charcuterie. I'm going to sign up. Why don't you send it over here to New Jersey? But if it's not on a mass scale, you're not creating like boxes of tea. It's a little bit different. So you have different considerations.
Awesome.
Thank you so
Hey,
much.
so Sheila, I see your hand, but I'm going to ask Charlotte. Charlotte had a question earlier. Charlotte, if you will unmute and ask your question.
Yeah, so and I did put it in the chat. So I wanted to understand for businesses that are, starting out to, sell packages to smaller local retailers, like smaller specialty food shops, say for
Mhm.
instance, does barcoding serve as an element of decision making for those retailers to do business with a company? The barcoding in essence legitimizing the business and whatnot. Have you seen where it's that make or break? Well, I'll do business with you because you've got this barcoding, and so we know what direction you're going in. How does how does that typically play out?
Yeah, I can't get inside the mind of the buyer at that retailer, but I've heard from the small brands that we work with that they think it did make a difference. They think that it
Mm-hmm,
did show, I'm ready to go,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
I've got,
mm-hmm,
and it's not just barcoding too. I mean, we almost think about it as like the launch checklist. Like, do I have my
mm-hmm,
EIN number? Do I have
mm-hmm,
insurance? Do I have the proper trademarking and copyright for my
mm-hmm,
my brand name? And
mm-hmm,
we worked with a granola company. Her company used to be called Brooklyn Granola. She had to change her name to It's Nola because she found that there was some really serious copywriting issues with copywriting something. I think you can't copyright like a town, like a city name or something like that, or it was already taken. I should let her tell the story next time, but it's just one of those things where it's like you want to have all your ducks in a row, you want to be ready. I would have to think that that would give you an edge. Again, I can't tell from the retailer's perspective. The retailer might be willing to overlook some things if your product is just like amazing. But I think that it's something as a business owner that you have to decide, is this, is it worth putting my best foot forward, or taking a risk that they might choose somebody else over me?
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you for that. Okay, Sheila, go ahead and unmute yourself and you can ask your question.
Thanks for taking my question. Not my question, my question. All right. So I'm not sure if you answered this, and I apologize if you did, or it may not even be an answer for you. It may be an inside automation. As I think about it out loud, it may be something inside. But my question is, let's just say if I have a barcode for item A, and I'm producing 1,000 of those, and I am sending those to Kroger A and Kroger B, and then Publix A and Publix B. How do I then determine if there is something that's going on and there was a recall or something that happened at Kroger B? How do I then know which is there like a product that I know? How do I know that product came? Trying to see, you understand what I'm saying? Like, I think, so how do I know that? How do I know that? How do I know? Well, I guess it's from the barcode itself. And I think it's probably more inside automation.
So I think the answer in that lies with your relationship with the retailer. So the retailer, if something happens on their end or something they spot, they should be able to come to you and say, hey, something doesn't look right with these products. Can you just kind of check your production line and make sure everything's in order? I know a lot of brands in the food industry apply for the SQF certification, and I can give you guys some information on that if you're unfamiliar with it. I know retailers like a Whole Foods, maybe Wegmans too. They do, for some product categories, require that you show that your facilities are up to safety standards and you're producing high quality products. So you might in that process have a plan for like a mock recall, or like, what are we going to do in the event of a recall? How do we communicate that to our retailers? So if you're not at that level of growth yet, I wouldn't worry about it. But if you do have retailers asking you, are you SQF certified, or if they expect some level of additional safety certification because you're maybe working with like a leafy greens or something that can be subject to recalls frequently, it's just something to read up about and be knowledgeable about. And I guess it really does start with you too. Like, do I want to be prepared for any kind of safety issue, and kind of working that into your growth plan or your business plan. But yeah, it probably would be communicated to you from the retailer what their expectations are in terms of recalls.
Thank you. I see from Two Wolves, would like to know if the GTINs can be used more than once, and are the QR codes reassignable?
So your GTINs should not be reused, right? So like that's kind of what we're talking about with that unique identification, is if I'm a teddy bear company and then I try and use it on a lamp, your retailers are going to kick that back to you because they're going to check the GS1 database and say, hey, that's going to cause havoc in our inventory management systems. We're going to have unhappy customers who are expecting a teddy bear and they get a lamp. So, or vice versa. So reusing the GTIN, not recommended. We do have that decision-making tool that I talked about that'll help you decide if you do need to change your GTIN when you have something seasonal, or when you're changing your product packaging or formulation. Yeah, it's a reality of an e-commerce driven world where everything really needs to have its own identification number.
So I think you might have answered Teresa's question. So and this happened to me when I first started out, and if this is the case, those codes are still wrong. But when went to put in the information, um, it's incorrect. Is there a way to change that information once you realize that, there needs to be a change?
So Arbor, you're talking about when you're working in Data Hub in our tool, when you're assigning
That's
that
correct.
GTIN?
When you're assigning those codes
Mhm.
to your products.
So you should be able to, as long as you did not set it to in market. So there's pre-market and in market. As long as it's not in market, you should be able to make those changes. And like I said, we do have a lot of kind of walk me pop-up bubbles that say like, are you sure you're ready to go in market? You know, we want to make sure that you have the most accurate information before you're ready to launch. So that is important to have some level of kind of quality control in your own processes to make sure that you're not wasting that GTIN unnecessarily. You know, we don't want to see that just as much as you guys don't want to see that.
So to be clear, if you put it in market,
You
you've
can't change it.
lost it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thought
And
so.
I will say we have fantastic member support. You can call them and they'll see what they can do. Sometimes they can work some magic. I don't know if there's loopholes sometimes depending on the situation, but most of the time, yes. Yeah, in market means it's in market. It's done.
And you'll share that information with us.
Sure. Yes. Yeah.
Okay, awesome.
And I just want to circle back to one of I think this was pertaining to that recall question we had earlier. Tim brings up a really good point. The lot codes are used to identify where the product was manufactured, not necessarily the GTIN. So that's an important distinction, is that there's additional data markers that help you in the event of a recall understand what was affected and what needs to be potentially destroyed.
Awesome. Well, we only have about almost 10 minutes here. So, Evan, I'll ask you to unmute and go ahead and ask your question that you put in the chat.
Maybe
While, Evan, are you there? All righty, we'll move on. Nikki, will you unmute and ask your question? You said you've purchased a GTN code for a product a year ago and no longer producing that product. Do you need to terminate that code? Is that correct?
Yes, good morning. So I
Good morning.
created 2 barcodes for 2 products that I was selling to a local retail store in Atlanta. I am no longer producing those products. I have in place new products that I'm going to put out this year. So do those barcodes just kind of float, or is there a way to go in and terminate them or delete them from the website so they're no longer there?
No, I don't believe that you have to proactively terminate those, Nikki. I think that once you're not using them, you're just not able to reuse them, if that makes sense.
Yes.
If if you purchase them like one off, if they were the $30 single G10 too, those don't have a renewal fee, so they're like they're yours. That you use them. I would just, I don't think you have to take any action. Put it that way.
Okay, perfect. That answers my question. Thank you.
Awesome. Tim, can you unmute and ask your question?
Yes. Can you hear me?
We
Hi,
can hear
Tim.
you.
Hey. Yeah, my company, we've set up our cases as 24 count, and we're starting to sell as 12 count. Is there a one-to-one relationship between the eaches and the cases?
Okay, I'm gonna have to get back to you on this. I'm gonna have to phone a friend. I don't want to give you incorrect advice and say, yeah, because I think you do need different ones. But there could be an instance where you don't. So let me take that and I can get back to you, Tim.
Okay, super.
And Kaitlin, will you add your contact information in the chat, please?
Yep.
And also, we lost your screen, so
Oh, sorry.
people can connect with you on LinkedIn. Hey, I see one more question. This is from Teresa, and she says, um, Teresa, I don't understand that one. Can you unmute and ask the question?
Sure. So I did not know anything about the one up where you can just purchase one barcode and there's no renewable fee. How many of those can you purchase, or is it just like a one-time deal if you're an introductory person to the platform?
Okay, sorry. If you could repeat that, I think you're referring to the single G10 for $30.
Yeah, that one. So I was self-taught. I basically taught myself how to put my barcodes and stuff together.
All right.
So I didn't know that there was a single one that you can purchase. I don't know if that was something just started 2025 or 2024, but I purchased most of mine like in 2023. Is that still available? And how many of those can you actually purchase?
Yeah, yeah. So it was introduced in 2020. So we've had about 5 years of that. There's information on our website. But you're telling me that we need to do a better job of really kind of marketing this thing better too to make sure the word gets out. I will say there's no limit on how many. We do see people getting like 45 single GTINs, right? You
Oh,
can
wow.
do that if you really don't want that renewal fee, you can do that. Um, I would encourage you, because there are different things that you can't do with that single GTIN that retailers may ask of you. So that slide where it kind of talked about the power of the prefix, if you ever want to create coupons for your products, manufacturer coupons, you're going to need a prefix to do that. Some healthcare, I'm sorry, not healthcare, sorry, food regulations. There's the Food Safety Modernization Act that is going to start to be enforced next year for certain high risk foods. So there's like leafy greens and shellfish and things like that. If your products have ingredients like that, you are going to need to show some additional traceability information, like with a global location number and things like that. If you're not in those categories, you don't have to worry about it. But there are some things that do require the prefix, where your single GTIN, if you go crazy buying a lot of them and labeling those products, I just wouldn't want you to have to start over again because of one of those reasons down the road, where then you have to get a prefix anyway. So it really depends on your business case, your growth, who you're working with. So it's really worth looking into, and you might still decide, okay, I think I can still just do those singles, and we're here for it. We'll go go on our website and make that decision. But we just want you to be educated there.
Thank you so much for that information.
Mhm.
Okay, Kaitlin, I think we have one more. We'll make this our last question,
Sure.
and it is from Evan, and he says, um, we know that a lot of information can be housed in the QR code. Will there be an ability to incorporate the same QR code for POS scanning and consumer level marketing? So, for example, the same QR code able to be scanned at retail can be scanned by the consumer with their mobile phone. It takes them to a dedicated website for
Mhm.
that product that expands on product functions, recipes, and so forth.
Yes, 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 and yes. I mean, there's so many possibilities. So it's really interesting. This is why GS1Yes is trying to get as many brands as we can into some pilot programs to test different use cases, because what we can enable is yes, that QR code will be scanned at the point of sale and with a customer smartphone. It does require a specialized kind of QR code. It can't just be kind of go create it with a free QR code generator right now, like you would, like for my presentation. That's exactly what I did. You might need to partner with somebody like Bitly, Flowcode, Blink. There are a lot of solution partners in our solution partner program that specialize in QR code databases, right? So, and you can do it without a database, right? You can just, as long as your QR code is structured correctly, and I'm going to put some information on here that will explain it much better for you guys. But the key takeaway is there's so many possibilities, and if you did want to have a really robust experience behind that QR code, you might be better served going with one of these partners to then also be able to change that experience from for seasonal purposes, for if I make one product and I want to see if I can push out information to those in Florida, that's different from those in New Jersey, different promotions, different offers. You need to only print that QR code once, but you have a backend database that allows you to change that experience whenever you want. And that's kind of what we were getting at with that Pepsi example, where if they were printing that QR code on there once, but have a robust backend database to change those allergens whenever, like as soon as a new allergen is named, they don't have to, they'll save money on reprinting packaging, or they can do it much faster, right? So that's one of the key takeaways there. But it's a combination of different things that make those things possible. We have a philosophy with the 2D barcode or the QR code, that you can join at any level. It's a crawl, walk, run kind of thing. So like a Pepsi, they're running, right? They've got that database, they've got the ability to kind of change that dynamic information. Small brands can just as easily start out with a crawl, where you have a landing page that says, this is me, I'm Kaitlin, this is my family's tea company, and this is where it comes from, and tell my story, because a lot of people want to connect with that. that founder on that level and know more about where the product comes from. That can be what you start with, and then you work your way up to this like dynamic and loyalty programs and pushing out coupons. But I think that it's all about thinking about what does your customer want to see? How can I use this to my advantage? Maybe it's a competitive advantage that, you know, my peers aren't exploring. So it's kind of exciting when you think about it that way, and it doesn't have to be like all at once, if that makes sense.
Awesome. Well, Kaitlin, thank you so much for your time today. We're going to stop it here. And we really appreciate you and especially GS1 for your support and your time today. Alrighty,
Oh, I had so
everybody,
much
I
fun.
hope
Thank you.
okay, great. So everybody, I hope you will have a great day. And please feel free to reach out to Kaitlin or myself if you have any further questions. Bye now.
Bye. Thank you all. Have a good day.